First is the idea of a connected ecosystem. So we are one part of the puzzle, and we're really at the middle, the glue, right, of your business operations. We don't turn away people who are like, man, I really can't get this anywhere. And they're on a different system or a different technology stack, or even just running out of spreadsheets and jot form.
Hello, this is Andy Seeley with Creatively Disruptive, and this is another episode of A Family Business. And we're very lucky today to be talking to brainiacs from Jackrabbit, and we're going to have a little chat with them. First of all, we've got Amber Smith, and tell us your role and what you do, Amber.
Yeah, so I'm a strategic account executive on the enterprise team over at Jackrabbit. So really working with the larger businesses with high enrollment to make sure that we're partnering alongside them and supporting their businesses, from new businesses that join Jackrabbit to our existing clients that have been with us since day one.
Awesome. And we also are very lucky to have Amanda. If you can explain what your role is, because it's an interesting name. I was a little bit lost by what it is because it sounds very powerful. So Absolutely. What is your role with Jackrabbit, Amanda?
Yeah, well, thanks for having Amber and I on today. We're really excited to chat with you. We've had a lot of good intersections in the market. And so my role at Jackrabbit is traditionally how I describe like a captain of a ship, actually. So as product owner, I am really ingrained in the market. So I work with Amber and her team, but I also work with partners like you and also our customers. And the cool thing about it is I sit on a ship with our engineering team. So I work with our CTO, and I really I'm kind of looking around, looking at the winds, looking at what's on the horizon and going, how do we need to pivot to make sure that the product is not just sustainable in the market from a technology perspective, but also making sure that the industry is being up-leveled and we're supporting that. And so I have the honor of kind of sitting in the intersection of a lot of these roles. And so I own the roadmap and I own the strategy, but I also work very closely with others. And so I do a lot of collaboration and cross-alignment across.
So you're almost like glue.
A little bit,
sure. Stick it all together, right?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Glue that's inquisitive. So you're like looking out and like if there's a whole bunch of clients that are saying, man, I wish we could do this or I wish we could do that, you're like listening for that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
And I have a technology background, so I've kind of fell into the technology space by coming up as a developer. And then I really found that I love talking with people like you, Andy. I love working with Amber and her clients. And so I get to kind of take all of that in and make really logical decisions. I'm actually hyper analytical sometimes to the point where I'm like, ooh, what is the data telling us? And that's really going to help us drive where we're going and where we need to pivot to help client growth.
Awesome. And just for anybody who's watching, I've known Amanda for about 4 or 5 months. I met her at National Congress, but I've known Amber, it feels like 7 years. Right?
Oh, yeah.
How long ago and you've gone through a couple of different things and you're just marching through the job responsibilities, and sure. I'm kind of excited about your role too now as well.
Yeah,
what would you say would be a key thing about what you're doing nowadays, Amber?
Well, after being here for almost 10 years, I celebrate my anniversary here in a few weeks.
Awesome.
Just seeing how the product has grown and how our markets have grown and how we've been able to shift based on the market needs, and going from a role where I started in support, so knowing the product very intimately, then moving over to the marketing team to help take those features to market, and now just being alongside the clients to help them make their lives easier with these features has been really rewarding and fulfilling. And just, I love to help people, so finding that solution for them is just, it fills my cup.
Yeah. I mean, I've got to say as an outsider that's kind of had something to do with you guys, but I'm not part of Jackrabbit. One of the things that has always been quite exciting about Jackrabbit to me is how engaged you guys are, like compared to a lot of the other options that are out there. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's whole departments, it feels like there's whole departments that you guys basically have about engagement, about trying to figure out what your clients' needs are. One of the big things that I hear from a negative standpoint about Jackrabbit are all kind of things from 6, 7, 8 years ago, pre-COVID kind of times. And I'm constantly telling people, look, if Jackrabbit isn't your cup of tea today, you should be constantly looking at it because it's constantly evolving, probably more so than most other options. And they're trying always to make it a better product for you guys. And, that's what we hear about from our clients too. Majority of our clients probably use Jackrabbit. We're heavily involved in it. One of the reasons why we talk to you, Amanda, a lot, and you, Amber, is because a lot of our clients have it. And it's a key part of that process of a new client coming on board and then managing a client, right?
Mhm.
It's,
Right.
there are still, believe it or not, kids' activity centers that operate out of notepads and notebooks, which
And
is
Google
mind-boggling
Sheets.
to me. And, I'm glad those days are somewhat over. I remember when we owned our gym, we used Pro School,
Mhm.
and it was a non-online software
Mhm.
system.
Been
It's
there.
still in existence. I think they mainly work with meets and so forth now, but back in the day, it was a decent system, but it wasn't online. It was
Yeah.
offline. So
Yeah.
I think they did do an online version, but I think that was about when Jackrabbit started to really come into its own.
Well, and Andy, I think it's interesting you called out 6, 7 years ago. As a technology company, we were the first in market, right?
Right.
And so coming to your point, kind of tying that together, being in the industry for 20 years, we have so many insights both internally, but it doesn't take away from the fact that we still need to be out talking to our clients and engaging them. And that's a big shift of when COVID happened. As a company, we were fully remote. We were pretty innovative. We had the architecture set up to actually handle COVID. But post-COVID, you'll notice like our business model, like our goal remains the same as to help youth activity centers. But I would say the way that we've approached it has become even more, we're doubling down on that client engagement and market engagement. So maybe a couple of years ago, we weren't talking to clients as much, and you'll see a total shift in our company's strategy to say, what do our clients need? Let's not build what we think, let's build what they need to help grow, because we're here for the industry. We're not here just for Jackrabbit. And I think just seeing that difference over the last few years with COVID and giving us another try, I know that's something Amber and I talk a lot about, is like, how do we get that message across to our clients? Hey, we're trying, we're doubling down, and we're connecting even more.
Well,
Yeah,
Amanda's really owned that, like turning the ship around, back to that. So it's been really exciting to be a part of.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to get into. But before we get into that stuff, because there's a lot of really cool things that I think most people don't understand about Jackrabbit, and I think I do want to go down that service kind of like focus that you guys have. But before we start, because I think not everybody understands the formation and the origin story of Jackrabbit, and I think that in itself is indicative of why Jackrabbit is special. So for those of you who might not know the full story, how did Jackrabbit start and what inspired its mission to support kids' activity centers?
Amanda, you want me to take this one?
If you for sure. You've been here a little longer than I have.
Yeah,
Probably.
I feel like I've heard the story a lot. Mark and Mike, who started Jackrabbit, literally met at lunch, and the slogan is, it started on a napkin. So they had this idea of like, parents want to enroll their children. It was 2004, which seems like not that long ago, but technology wise, that is kind of a long time ago.
Yeah.
We had just passed Y2K and we knew that the world wasn't going to shut down, but then like handing over this control to parents to be able to let them sign their kids up for something themselves was not necessarily something that people were really open to. And so Mark and Mike had this idea of, let's build this, we know it doesn't exist today, and make it cloud-based so that you can manage it from anywhere, because these businesses, people are wearing many hats, they're on the go, and they actually had a hard time getting people to like buy into this. Our very first client out in Raleigh, North Carolina is still a client of ours 21 years later, which is really special. But they both worked outside of their full-time jobs to get this off the ground, and they would get part-time moms or stay-at-home moms to help with these support things in different areas in the company where they needed people, until they got to a point where they could do it full time and it was profitable. And then it was like, well, this remote approach works. It's worked this whole time. Let's just keep that going. And so it just kind of built up from there. That's like the original origin, but Amanda might have something to add more on how it's all came together.
Well, and from a product side, I think you hear a lot of, you have to be on social media, you have to be on these apps all the time. And actually our approach is a little bit different, which is unique. We actually, and the founders really believed that the technology to be invisible was actually a benefit, because it allowed youth activity center owners, the coaches or the mom who's at the front desk, to go back and have a lot of your admin tasks automated. And so we actually looked at technology as a partner and not so much you have to sit on it all day, every day. And so we actually monitor that from a product perspective as the product's evolved, it's less about what can we give you that's more work for you to do versus what can we take off your plate and what can we automate? What can we make sure that our core values, like I think that ties into the story as well. Being able to have full ownership over that at the company are something that the Mark and Mike have instilled in us. And I think that really carries down even to our clients of we have a win-win mindset. We want our clients have a win-win mindset. Adopting Jackrabbit is not just a tool to run operations, it's to help alleviate operational frustrations, automate, get it off your plate so that it's a win-win. So you're having something help automate it, but at the same time, you get to get back to the gym, you get back to the pool, you get back to the studio, wherever you are, you're really focused on the kids in the center and less about what admin tasks you have to do to make sure that the business is still growing.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I love about it is that it was about trying to reduce the number of hats that business owners wear, right? And we all know that most kids' activity centers are hub and spoke type businesses. And what I mean by that, they're not hierarchical where, you know, there's the boss and then there's people who filter down and run the ship like a lot of businesses are. They're kind of hub and spoke where everything goes through this one person and they have everything that they're responsible for. And I think Jackrabbit does a really good job of working to try to take some of those things that can be very automated just off of their list. I remember my wife would have to manually process credit card payments way back in the day.
Yeah.
Each month. Right? And being able to just have it on automated on the first was like magic. So you know, I think we kind of covered it, but you know, if you guys want to just throw in a little bit more information about it, but Jackrabbit, you know, obviously, as you guys have said, has been around over 20 years, 21 years. One of the things I'm always really excited by, and why we kind of chose you to kind of really try to partner with, is how you're constantly innovating. Like the Jackrabbit 15 years ago is very different to the Jackrabbit of 10 years ago, which is very different to the Jackrabbit of 5 years ago, which is very different to the Jackrabbit of today. And probably what the Jackrabbit of today is going to be very different from the Jackrabbit in 5 years from now. You know, what's driven that innovation? Like, has it been that client focus that you have? Is that the driving force, or you know, is there something else in the culture? Because it's a cultural thing. Because all of you have this mentality. What's the driving factor? And how do you kind of like ultimately, I guess this is a little bit of an Amanda question, seeing that you got your ears peeled everywhere. How do you decide what to build next and what to innovate?
So it's a little bit of art and a little bit of science. So product management in general can be heavily debated online. If you look at all of the startups in the technology world, I would say in the last year, we've really proved that focusing on our clients is what's going to give us innovation. Our best ideas are sometimes coming from us, but really ultimately they're coming from our clients. We may have a hunch on something, but it really starts with our mission. And that is really just helping activities centers grow and be efficient. So when you look at it through that lens, we look at the pain points, we talk to clients. We're lucky enough to have, to your point, amazing internal Jackrabbit staff who are all client facing and leading with empathy and really, and kind of going back to our core values, connecting with others. So I can't do it all by myself. So while I'm kind of like the center, right, the glue of bringing all those insights together, it's really a partnership with what are the market needs, what are the biggest pain points, and how much are we going to actually save them, not only time, but how much is this going to have them grow? And innovation really starts with sometimes our clients having us and hosting us on site, which is one of my favorite things. A couple of weeks ago, I partnered with Amber and her team, and we got to go on site to a dance studio and learn all of the pain points of their growth and where they're going to expand into next. What are some of their pain points? And it kind of helps us look at the market of what are the blueprints for success? And then how does that apply to the rest of the market? And so that's kind of where the art comes in, is you look at not just one industry like dance, but gymnastics and swim, who all have unique challenges, but at the end of the day are all supporting the child, right? So when you put the child first, you go, what's going to help you become a better business owner? That list to prioritize is just done iteratively. I would say too, another big change is we've adopted Agile, and that mindset of having transparency, being able to inspect every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, our teams come together and go, is there anything that we're doing that we should pivot on? Are there any other high priority items, right? Are there any opportunities for innovation that we're not taking advantage of? And through that lens, every 2 weeks, being able to do that, just like having a staff meeting or a monthly meeting at a gym or a swim, like you don't really know as an owner what's going down on the floor day to day if you don't talk to them. And that's really, I
Right.
think, a big proponent of innovation here is connecting. And it's really hard to create that if not everyone's aligned in those same values.
Yeah. And I kind of feel that gymnastics, dance, swim, all of those, kids activity centers, and obviously there's others than those too, that they tend, it's kind of a lonely existence sometimes for the owners, and sometimes I can't tell you how many, especially gymnastics gym owners, I heard have said, man, I wish there was a software that did this, or man, I think I'm going to try to build my own operating software, or blah, 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 blah. What I do like about you guys is that you do take on that role a little bit, where you kind of don't allow them to be by themselves. And I think a lot of people think of Jackrabbit as just a software operating system, class management system, but there's so much information. I bring you guys up all the time when it just comes to, like last week, I was talking to a gym in Chicago that is struggling from a profitability standpoint, and they're doing close to $100,000 a month, and which is a decent number, but they're not profitable. And talking through what their situation was, that they're charging like $100 a month for a class, and I said to them, we have a client that's literally 10 miles from you, 10 maybe 15 miles from you, charging $220 for the same class. And, where are you looking at numbers? Why are you making these decisions of raises? And they came back with, well, I'm just fearful of making a decision of raising prices because I don't want to lose people because we're not profitable. And profitability does oftentimes attach itself to how much you charge for the service that you offer. One of the things I love, and I think, Amber, you gave this to me, was the fact that any of your clients, and probably anybody, even if they're not clients, can reach out to you guys and actually get loads of data on lots of different markets and lots of different niches in the kids activity center realm to see if you're actually in line with what it should be, correct?
Yes. So we have an annual benchmarks report, and we take all of the data over like a 3 or 4 year period from the clients that we've had during that time frame and aggregate it. So we're not showing anyone's personal data, but really finding these trends and statistics that you can make decisions from. So getting that average tuition price for gymnastics gyms, for cheer gyms, for dance studios, for swim schools. Obviously, demographics play a little bit a part of that, but just being able to know like where are your peers and where you can benchmark yourself and where you want to go. I know it's really scary to feel like you're outpricing your community, but I know that you've talked to Sean Deaver, and he says that if you're raising your prices and no one's leaving you because you didn't raise them high enough, you didn't go high enough. And he's really big on the discounting and prorating. One time he told me that I stole his thunder, and just, helping share that message of like Disney's not discounting, American Airlines isn't discounting, for the second and third child. And so just making sure that you are showing the value through your pricing, and, you have staff to pay, you have a facility to heat and cool and all of the things. And so just making sure that you're not undercutting yourself, because when you hear they're bringing in $100,000 a month, you would think that is a profitable business. So really helping them see their value and understanding, they are a optional activity and service, and they should, know that through their pricing.
The reality is, and I've said this so many times, is no parent decides to send their kids to any kids activity center to save money. Like people don't go, you know what, I need to save money this month, I'm going to send my kid to gymnastics or swim.
Right.
They're doing it for another reason other than cost. And most people that can afford to pay, right, what they're looking for is a certain quality of service. They're not looking for that savings, right? When I'm getting my kid involved with whatever, I've got a son, an 8-year-old, and I'm not going, I want to get him into something, let's look for the cheapest possible place to send him.
Right.
I'm looking for the best possible place. And my philosophy always has been, be the Mercedes, don't be the, what's the bottom rung, car, because it's hard to say, because you used to say Kia or Hyundai, but they're actually decent cars now. But, don't be the low end model.
Right. Be the luxury model.
Be the aspirational model, right? And
well, you're not just giving a thing to do, you're actually giving them confidence. You're giving them a skill set that you as a parent can only teach so much, but you're also taking them and putting them next to another child for social development. So you're not just paying for teach my kid how to swim. It's make my kid confident in the pool, or give my child a creative outlet in the studio, or help their body image and confidence and their mental health on a beam. Like, I really think parents these days, especially with technology, which is ironic, right? We're a technology company. We're really trying to provide our clients the opportunity to say, give them an experience that isn't so around technology and social media, and give them that outlet. And that value, I think a lot of times our gyms discount themselves, right? Like, they're hiring really high qualified staff. They need to recruit people and retain who are going to want to give back to the community. And I think that's what's special, Andy, too, about Jackrabbit is you have clients that you can refer to other clients, like down the road. Like, we have such a reach, and we've been in the industry so long that we know that the value of what their service they're providing is worth it to parents. And it may feel wrong to ask them to raise their price, but we also want them to feel valuable so they're profitable, so that the industry continues to grow, and ultimately youth as a whole continues to evolve in these kind of soft skills that it's kind of hard to put a price tag on it.
Right.
Yeah,
well, I mean, I think, sorry, go Amber. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I'm not a parent, but I was a studio kid. And so I am the product of a dance studio where my mom trusted the owner. Now they're, partners in business at this point, 31 or 2 years later. But, it was like, this is where she thrives. This is where she can learn to be a team player, where she can learn to be confident, where she can learn to be in front of people and hold her head high. And that has impacted me as I am today as, a professional woman. So it really is a big deal. And I think it's really easy for some of these owners to forget the impact that they're making on the youth that become our citizens and our adults of today.
Well, I always say that, things that oftentimes talk about gymnastics, I guess, specifically, but it could be any kids' activity center, dance or whatever. The things that happen daily, you become like jaded by it, or jaded might not be the same, but you go like, oh, I see this every day, so it's not a big deal. But the reality is a lot of these parents, and we see it in our advertising, a parent of a 4-year-old girl who's seeing a photo of a little girl doing a really nice cartwheel or a forward roll. It's something that as a coach you might see, or a teacher, you might see every single day, so it's not a big deal to you. But to that mom's like, I would love my little daughter to be able to do that cartwheel. I love that, and it's such a big deal. And a lot of our ads, the most effective ones are the ones where it's like two girls like this smiling at the camera, and the little story is Jessica and Jane met each other at XYZ studio, best friends for the last 4 years. Mums are looking for ways to connect with other kids and families, and the value in that is tremendous. And I think a lot of kids' activity centers undervalue the everyday because they see it every day. But a lot of times parents don't see that every day,
And I think we actually, Amber and I were in just the outside of DC about 3 weeks ago at a dance studio. Very similar story. They have 2 locations, but when we visited one of their studios in kind of a smaller, close-knit community, they had photos on the wall of a little girl ballet, and she was on a bar. Man, I am not a dancer, Amber, so correct me if I'm wrong here. But she was there, and they had this photo of her, and they hang it there because they said years later she came back to teach and continue, and her growth and evolution through this dance studio was one of the reasons that it kept people coming back. And like reminding people of that kind of helped put that front of mind, is it's not just on their website, right, or in their ads, but it's actually physically in the space, so that you can tie those things that you're promoting online all the way through your studio. And make sure that when parents are showing up in the pickup and then they're dropping their kid off and they're looking up through the mirror, they're also seeing that little girl who evolved and is now teaching the class is now one of the reasons and the missions and the value of the industry. And I think that's really special that exists.
Yeah. And you mentioned like, hey, we're a technology company, blah, 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 blah. But the reality is what I've been kind of like evangelizing a little bit lately is how important it is for kids' activity centers to communicate effectively with their community. And I use that in lieu of the horrible words marketing and advertising, because everybody's so like, ooh, yuck, I don't want to do marketing, ooh, yuck, advertising doesn't work, word of mouth, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so, but when I say, hey, how important do you think it is to communicate effectively with your community? They all go, oh, yes, that's really important. What I love that we see, and this is me, as a separate organization talking about I almost called you Jackrabbit, is you guys are a little bit like an Amanda, where you're like the glue that connects everything, right? And and that kind of brings up a little bit as to why we're getting quite involved with each other's businesses. Is we're all about trying to reach out and find that mum that's never heard of the location. You guys are actually in the once we've got it to the point that they've heard about the organization, to actually get that client organized in the organization, communicated with, charged, all of that stuff to keep them all together. And I think that connection to the community, might start with an ad or a word of mouth or whatever it is, but ultimately comes all the way through to actually having their details, getting their information, staying relevant in communication with the parent. And, Jackrabbit, does seem to be, in my mind, very, very concerned with that relationship part, which is a bit unusual with technology companies. They usually try to solve all sorts of things that sometimes we don't need to be solved. What I really highly recommend anybody to look into when it comes to Jackrabbit is they kind of know that there's like 4 or 5 really important things, and they're constantly looking to try to figure out how to do that better, not try to invent something that isn't really there that needs to be solved, but more of, hey, here's these 4 things, like communicating with your community, keeping your business organized, making sure that your classes are organized, making sure that people are being charged, data, having that data to make decisions. One of the things I really enjoy about Jackrabbit is the amount of data that you can pull from it. One question, might sound like a negative question to throw at you, and it's not on the list, Amber, so I'm worried that I'm going to upset you. You have so much data that you can pull from Jackrabbit that sometimes the difficulty is knowing how to pull that data. And we experience that with a lot of our clients, and we have to kind of work through them. And this isn't like just a Jackrabbit thing. This is all digital, online, class management systems and so forth. With Jackrabbit specifically, if a client's struggling to pull data, how do you guys help that? What do you guys do to support somebody to actually get the data? Because from my standpoint, data is absolute king. You can make wonderful decisions when you know the right data, right? So, let's talk about somebody who might be thinking about Jackrabbit or is working with another organization that does similar business. I'm trying to avoid mentioning names, and they're going, I'm very frustrated with my inability to actually look at the data. What do you guys do to help, that situation? How do you teach, what is it?
Is
this an Amber question?
I can answer.
Is this an Amanda? Whatever.
So
I'll let Amanda start, and then I'll tap in anything extra.
So I think you mentioned a few things that I want to touch on. First is the idea of a connected ecosystem. So we are one part of the puzzle, and we're really at the middle, the glue, right, of your business operations. And to your point, we're not out to solve it all. We know we can't solve it all. And there's already, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. And so I think it really starts with our viewpoint on the market in general, which is being, is it cooperation?
Coopetition.
Thank you.
Coopetition.
Yeah. So we believe the way that we collaborate in the market, even with someone who's on a different system, we don't turn away people who are like, man, I really can't get this anywhere. And they're on a different system or a different technology stack, or even just running out of spreadsheets and jot form. Our really hypothesis, and not hypothesis, but what we've seen in the community is the way that we interact people together and connect with others is by far most what people are going to get the most. So we could throw a bunch of data at people. We have several dashboards. We have several reporting tools. We have a team. But I would say at the heart is when we talk about coopetition in general, we're only going to be elevated by those around us as well. So I would love to say, oh, we have all the best data in the world. And I believe we do. I believe that our data workflows are better in the product. We have cleaner data so that when you do go run reports, it matters. And I think that's a really important step is I can give you the prettiest dashboard or the prettiest chart ever, but if the data's not great, it doesn't really matter. And so that data story is something we've really been honing in on. There's a book actually called Data Story that we've been working with some of our larger clients because they have so much data, they don't know what to do with it.
Right.
Data is only great if you can actually make sense of it. So first and foremost, that really starts with our community. So our Facebook user group is pretty active. I know Amber and I are in there a lot. And it's a matter of when you're looking for certain information, are you looking for something that you're going to report on time and time again? That's a great use case to reach out to us, and we can help get set up like, these are the reports that you use. These are the reports I would check so often. If you're looking for one-off data, I would definitely encourage you to go to our Facebook user group if you're a client of ours, because that's where you're going to get the most community-based answer.
Right.
But that's going to help you say, like, based on my region or the size of my studio, to Amber's point, we have an entire benchmark report that does that for you, but it's one time, right? And so it kind of, there's a lot of factors at data here. And I would hate to give you one word answer, but I also just really say double down on your community. Who's the person down the street, regardless of what systems they're using, what data is using them to drive to profitability. And I think you're going to see a lot of more content come out from us this year around, or next year, because it's almost the end of 2025, around what profitability looks like and what are the metrics you should track. So our vision is to obviously give you that, right? To not make it so hard to find it, but it all starts with who is profitable? How can we take that blueprint and not just make it so that you're competing down the street, but that you're making as equally as great business decisions than the person down the street who are maybe on a different system. Amber, did you want to,
competition, whether it's Jackrabbit's competition or the Youth Activity Center's competition, it's healthy. It all drives us to be better and continue to strive to provide the best service, the best product. Again, whether you're a gym or whether you're Jackrabbit, obviously we have communities that can rely on each other, but I think understanding what are you wanting to do with the data that you're trying to get? Like if you want retention data, what are you planning to do with that to make decisions or make changes? And then our support team, I mean, they are rock stars, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So just reaching out to someone who can say, this is what you're looking for, so this is the report you should use, and getting those favorites set up is really, really awesome. But for the most part, our clients are all looking for the same thing. And so that's where, our report, I call it a reporting suite because there's just so many different things. Being able to just search by the keyword of whatever it is you're looking for to find that report, and then our business intelligence dashboard. But having an idea of what you plan to do with that data is just as important as getting the data itself, because we can pull numbers all we want, but if we can't build the story of what that data is telling us and then what we should do with it, then we're just pulling numbers for the fun of it.
I mean, I would just say, for anybody watching this, I think decisions should be driven by data. It's a triple Ds, right? And if you're making decisions, especially major decisions based on hunches and feelings and, well, this is how we've always done it, I think you're at risk of going in a very dangerous direction. One of the things I would highly suggest about most of the operating systems that are out there, but definitely Jackrabbit, is that there is that data that Amanda was talking about that's in there. There's all sorts of data in there. You can get lost, as Amber, you were talking about, amongst it all. But there is commonality between the successful and the unsuccessful, right? We see it all the time. The gyms and the dance schools and the swim schools and et cetera that are struggling, they all have a very similar story. And, we, as much as we do marketing, we've actually evolved as a company to be a much more of a consultative organization. There's a multiple of our clients that I actually do consultancy work with them every single week. I meet with them, we talk about their business and everything. And that's another level of service that our clients utilize. And because it's not good enough to just get a whole bunch of parents reaching out to you if you don't have other parts of your organization set up correctly, right? If you don't know how many kids that you have, if you don't know why kids are leaving. We've had gyms that we're adding 100 kids a month to, but they're losing 103. Right? And they're dying. It's like, whoa, you're adding so many kids. What's going on here? It's not about adding the kids. It's about keeping the kids. Let's dig into that to actually see where things are going. And what I do love about what you guys have and the fact that you've got that group, the fact that there probably are people to reach out to directly to at Jackrabbit if there's something that's broken, you're getting really frustrated. Instead of looking at your Jackrabbit deck and going, I'm so frustrated with this, I don't know. You really should reach out to the team because they care about you getting a good experience from it. And that, quite frankly, one of the things I appreciate, and I know some people in the business don't, but one thing that I do appreciate about your kind of business is that, because you do the credit card processing, because you handle the billing and all of that, and because oftentimes it's your income's tied to their success, you're almost in a partnership, which oftentimes isn't the way it is with a lot of other businesses that you work with, right? Your success is their success. You want that gym to be doing $1 million a year, not $500,000 a year, because you guys benefit from it yourselves. So there's actually, whilst we'll try to sit here and make Jackrabbit look altruistic and just doing it for the love of people and that people are lovely and we just want everyone to be happy, the reality is their success really directly impacts your guys' financial success too. And that is a good thing, not a bad thing. That's a great thing in my mind.
And I would echo that. That's one of the reasons we've chose to partner, especially with Creatively Disruptive, is to not just...
So do you want to say that again, just one more time?
And that's why
you're like...
With Creatively Disruptive, this whole idea of cooperation, right?
Yeah.
And being able to actually partner is extending the service beyond our mission. So yes, we charge based on how many students, and as you grow, we grow. But ultimately, we want to extend that value beyond just our product.
Yeah.
And that is one of the core product strategies that we have, is being able to partner with you and being able to offer services that you would have to do on your own, right? So we want to do the heavy lifting. We want to work with Andy's team and say, how can we make this data all in one place so that you're not having to go add more admin work, right? And so how do we automate that? And that is really what's cool about Jackrabbit, is this, you called it hub and spoke, but once it starts kind of spidering off, we now can have, the 2 degrees of Jackrabbit. You're within 2 degrees of us. You've used some partner or some tool that we're going to help elevate you. And also we're going to put you in contact with people like Creatively Disruptive that is going to elevate your strategy and give you services and give you insights into things that maybe we don't know, and we're learning from each other, and we're all elevating each other in the market.
Right, because business, even the Kids Activity Center world, which is a somewhat simple business in itself can be challenging, and there's no such thing as an all-in-one shop. I think you might have even mentioned that, Amanda or Amber, earlier. It's like you can't get everything from one place, right? And specialization is important too, right? Like, although, when you talk to someone like Kids First or whatever in Cincinnati, where they do everything, oftentimes specializing, there's real value to that, right? And, you guys become amazing at making sure that connection and that glue that you are, that operating system basically of a gym is operating. It's harder for you especially with the amount of change that happens in the digital marketing arena. It's changing weekly. If honestly, it's with AI and everything, which we'll talk about in a second, but with AI and how that's changing so fast, and this pace of change is going so fast too. It's really hard for a dance school teacher that has 2 part-time employees to stay on top of that. And quite frankly, it's probably unfair for Jackrabbit to be the answer to everything. And what I do appreciate about Jackrabbit, as I've seen it, is you guys are like, okay, we have connections with lots of different organizations. We are choosing ones that we feel are going to give good value and look after our people. Kind of same with us. I mean, we oftentimes recommend Jackrabbit because we know you guys and we know the quality that you guys offer. And you guys kind of replicate that with other organizations that are going to treat your clients well. It's not about, we don't have a quid pro quo. Amanda, I'm not paying you every time you say something nice about us. And you wouldn't say anything nice about us if there wasn't anything to say, right? Absolutely. And vice versa.
I was going to say, it ties back to what you mentioned earlier, where ownership in a small business can feel really lonely. And so when you're looking at your staff and leading staff, you don't have to feel lonely. Like, it's not just Jackrabbit in your corner. You have a suite of partners, Creatively Disruptive and Jackrabbit in your corner, helping you on both sides of new and retention and growth. And so you can now trust that you don't just have one system behind you. You have multiple systems.
Yep.
And sometimes, and what I hear in talking with owners, is it's really scary to add 3 or 4 tech stacks. So what is really important in this case is make sure they talk to one another. And this might be a small plug, but we integrate with Creatively Disruptive. We integrate with Kai. And I think that's really important, is that we're not just talking about it and saying, Andy and I have lunch together and we recommend each other. We go as far as making sure that our roadmaps align, that's going to give value, and that your data is not sitting in multiple systems. It's going through a single system. We're sharing insights, and then that's where your owner, or if you're an owner, you can feel that oh, I don't have to figure out how to connect all these. Jackrabbit's going to handle that because it's part of what they value about partnerships.
And I think as a user, you always want everything to be in one place, but it's just not realistic. Like, you guys are the experts in marketing and advertising. So it would be silly for us to also try to take that on when there's the opportunity to partner and let you be the experts and let us be the experts of the class management and the enrollment and the tuition billing and, all the things that go into retaining that client.
Right. And I mean, vice versa. It's like a lot of times, throughout the last 11 years that we've been in business working with kids activity centers, there's been times where I've been like, gosh, I wish there was a class management system that we could actually work with, because there was this like wall where we'd get all this data, and then there was that handover moment where it would go from all this data trail that we have to, I wonder what happened. We had to make it up with spreadsheets and so forth. And what I do love about Jackrabbit's efforts is they're trying to, you guys are trying to make sure that the data flow starts from the mum's first experience seeing an ad all the way through to an actual class being filled and being paid for. That's so valuable for a business owner. And the other part that I just wanted to throw out there before we move on to a couple of the final questions here is, one of the things I think is important for all of our clients and Jackrabbit's clients to remember about Jackrabbit, about Creatively Disruptive, and it should be one of the main things that you should think about when you're looking to do business with any of our types of businesses is, can I reach out to that business and ask a question about something that isn't necessarily their focus and be pointed in the right direction or get closer to a good answer? As a owner going through the Great Recession in 2009, 2010, there was many times when I was staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. in the morning, wondering, oh my gosh, how am I going to make payroll? How am I going to get the rent paid? How am I going to do this? And literally, I felt like there was no one to talk to, nobody. And I had to just try to figure it out myself. I think we've now evolved to a point where there's organizations like Jackrabbit, organizations like Creatively Disruptive, where even if it's not our thing, right? Creatively Disruptive, there's a lot of stuff that we can pull data from our 114 clients and go, this is what the successful ones are doing right now. This is what we need to implement with your business. I know you guys do the same thing, right, Amber? I think that's something that you guys do a lot of, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's a matter of, is there a business owner that we know that's just like you, that has been through this challenge, that would be willing to talk to you? And a lot of times, like, our clients are so happy to talk to other owners and share their experience. It's not a situation where we have to be like, will you please talk to them? They're just willing to do it. They don't even want like the referral credit of telling someone about Jackrabbit. They just want to share like the good message. And I think during COVID, that was really where Jackrabbit stood out. Was like, how can we connect you with someone in Chicago who's doing virtual dance lessons and is killing the game, so that you can learn from what she's already figured out and you don't have to spend the time figuring out? How can we connect you with another platform that is solving a problem that Jackrabbit doesn't solve, but we know that it works and people are having great success with it? Like, that's where the partnership piece of Jackrabbit is really where we stand out. Is like, we're not in it just for ourselves. We're not in it just for, obviously we're a business and we have to make money, but like, we want to see the businesses succeed. We want to impact the youth, because those are the people that become our society, in 10, 20 years. So it is really exciting to be a part of those conversations. I don't know anyone at Jackrabbit that would say, nope, sorry, we don't do that. And I don't have a clue who to connect you to. So, go out there and figure it out. That's also what's great about our Facebook user group, is a lot of times those owners are asking questions that have nothing to do with Jackrabbit. It could be policy related. It could be staffing related. It could be, what tool are you using outside of Jackrabbit to do X, Y, Z? And that is why we love that community.
Yeah.
It's network effect goes deep here.
Something, I know that so much of the Kids Activity Center business or niche or whatever you want to call it really don't do this. Don't reach out to people. That there's a lot of, how Creatively Disruptive knows how to do a Facebook ad. If I want to learn how to do that, maybe I'll talk to them. We know pretty much everything about running a kids activity center because of 10 years of interacting with our clients, seeing the ups and downs, the successes and the failures. There are some things that we don't do, like class management systems, but we'll say, hey, we know some people that are really good at that, and go and check out Jackrabbit. Our philosophy is kind of similar to yours, and I think this is again, when you're looking to figure out who you're going to partner with and choosing a class management system, quite frankly, it doesn't surprise me that your first client from 21 years ago is still with you, because it's something you really don't want to change. It's something integral and so important that you find the right people. And if you don't feel that you're being supported and taken care of by your class management system or your marketing company or your business consultant, you really need to find one that does. And one of the things that I think I really love about the alignment that we have culturally between our two companies is our philosophy as a team is we're here to help kids activity center owners be all they can be. And if we do a great job of that, we will make money, right? We're not going, how much can we squeeze out of every client of ours? We're going, if I help Amanda and her little dance studio become incredibly successful, she's going to stay with us forever, and she's going to see the value in what we do, and she probably will buy more products. And if we do need to raise prices at some point, she's probably going to be okay with it. Exactly. It's got to start with taking care of the client, and that client service focused kind of mission that Jackrabbit has is important. It sounds very much like an ad, but you guys are out there, whoever's listening to this, that there's other class management systems that don't have that focus. There's other agencies or marketing or client consulting firms that don't really have your best interest at heart first and foremost. Maybe it's fifth or sixth, but it's not number one. Find somebody that's number one. Anyway, I want to do a
Andy,
big... Sorry, go.
Can I just plug one more thing about Jackrabbit?
Absolutely, Amanda, you can plug it all.
So I know you're mentioning just the values of us, and one of the milestones that we reached this year was actually a B Corp certification. And that is really, I know it's not product related. It feels weird as a product owner I'm talking about it, but as a company, it really helped us say that while we're dedicated to the industry, we're also dedicated to balancing profit and purpose. So it rings true. We had an entire sustainability report that actually Amber, I was just pulling it up, Amber was pulling all this information together, and the amount of effort that goes into that is really intentional. It doesn't just demonstrate that we're providing a great service, but we are committed to the highest standards of social and environmental performance, transparency, and accountability. And I know that may sound very sales-like, but I really wanted to just emphasize that initiative led by our founder, Mark Mahoney. It really just doesn't bring value to our clients, but shows that we're committed in the industry as well. And we've been connecting with several clients in the industry, especially in swim, who are committed to this B Corp certification. I don't know, Amber, you probably have way more talking points on B Corp, but that is something I think is really cool. I've never been a part of a company that has doubled down on not just its mission, but shown it through action like that.
And that was not an easy process that our committee went through. So that's not something you'd get to just lightly put on the website and, tote that achievement around. So that was a good one to bring up.
Yeah, I think all of the great companies in relation to Apple and Tesla and, all of those kind of things, we're little small fries, right? But all the great companies that I think that actually span the test of time, because 21 years in business is unusual. 10 years in business is unusual, right? So, the fact that, Credibly Disruptive has been in business for nearly 11 years, you guys have been in business for probably over 21 years, that says something about the organization and how they operate. And in my experience and my knowledge, all of the really successful businesses, they have a mission.
Yep.
And their mission isn't, how do I make as much money as possible? A lot of people might say, corporate America, blah, blah. They're just about to try to screw us all over. That's not... The great ones don't. The great ones are trying, their mission, like Apple, is to produce beautiful products that are super easy to use and, build loyalty beyond, normal expectations, that kind of stuff. And their focus is that. And anything that goes outside of that, they don't bother with, right? And they know that if they nail those things, they'll make loads of money, to the point that they're a $1 trillion business, which is crazy. New Zealand, where I come from, it takes us 4 years of everyone spending all the pennies that we have in New Zealand to actually get to $1 trillion worth of business. So you could almost say that Apple is worth more than New Zealand, which is like crazy towns, really. But, when you're working with organizations that truly have the best interest in what you're doing, and they have a mission statement grander than let's make as much money, get our market cap as high as possible, that's where the magic happens. Anyway, let's switch this a little bit because we're getting to the end of our time together. This is maybe not necessarily a direct, creatively disruptive or Jackrabbit question. It's more of a technology question in the future. So as technology and automation and AI continue to grow, how do you guys see them influencing kids' activity centers? What's the pros and cons over the next 5 to 10 years? Which is scary to think. I think 10 years and I'm like, I'm not sure where we'll be in 5 years, let alone 10. 10 could be we're all immortals and we've transcended into light beings and we can fly around the universe in no time, 10 years from now. But where do you guys feel that direction is going? How do you see kids' activity centers being affected by AI, automation, and technology? It doesn't need to be a corporate Jackrabbit answer.
Yeah.
It just needs to be your feelings.
Yeah,
I think technology in general is just, the whole purpose of it is to make things easier, take things off of your plate, like Amanda talked about, and where we came from to begin with, so that you can do the things that AI and technology can't do. They can help with relationship building, but they're not going to replace that. You're not going to have AI teaching a dance class or teaching something on a beam. I mean, I shouldn't say never because we don't know. We really don't. But being able to take the things that can be automated and can be run by AI and removing that extra burden so that you can carry on the things that need to be a human, such as teaching a dance class, teaching a beam routine, teaching a kid to swim, like that requires human intervention and creates that experience that parents are paying for.
From a technology lens, AI is an enabler, just like technology was back in the .com days. I don't know that technology in general is going to replace the value of showing up and giving a kid confidence, whether that's in a pool, on a beam, on a mat, or in a studio. I have a 5-year-old son, and I think the biggest impact I've seen from technology is it's there. It's something we can't avoid. Technology is going to keep evolving, and we're going to learn from it, just like it's learning from us. And one of the things that I would just keep in mind is it's an enabler. It's going to help enable the direction of technology. I don't know that it's going to replace, like I mentioned, the human connection that we've created, especially in customer relationship, being in a service business. We have a service component just like our clients. And so when you're an owner looking at that, I would look at it as a tool, as a technology, but I hesitate because I haven't seen where it's actually replaced a role 100% without any kind of errors. And I think, I think it's out there. I think it's close in emulating that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really take away from the values that you instill and the culture you present face to face. AI, and I could be wrong, there's meta glasses now. There's all sorts of things out there that can help read that. But at the end of the day, your brain, something we're doing at Jackrabbit is something called positive intelligence. And the way that your experiences are, AI is never going to learn everyone's experiences to give that perspective. And so it's going to be really hard for it to come and actually take over that human connection of when a kid shows up and had a bad day, they got, there's something that happened at school and they're here to unwind on the mat. That teacher who might have went through that 20 years ago, AI is not going to know that to build a connection and give perspective. And I think that's really important for these owners and youth activity centers, is that we're here to make that connection happen. We can enable that through tools and offer it. And our team's really excited about AI, but it's also not something we foresee as something completely replacing that in-person connection customer service.
Yeah.
Like Amber said, automation is key, and AI can help with that, but it only goes so far to actually, what do you do with that information, or what do you do with that tool to actually implement it into your center?
Yeah, I kind of feel that the short term that I see is more of a shifting of resources, so you can shift the resources to the kids, to the classroom, to the dance studio, to the floor, instead of needing 5 people running the front desk of a busy gym, you might only need 2. And those 3 people can actually become coaches and actually be able to interact with the kids a lot more, or that resources that you're saving on those 2 positions can be put into pay raises to make sure that the staff, that the coaching staff is better taken care of and so forth. I see that definitely happening. I definitely also see it as, if you think of the evolution of writing, there was a day where, the writing was like a charcoal piece that you're rubbing on a wall to draw pictures all the way through.
4 times, yeah.
Right. There you go. And then a quill, and then a typewriter, and then a word processor, to the point now that 300 years ago, if you were writing a book, you would have a calligrapher with a quill writing the book. But now I can actually write a book with ChatGPT or another AI and actually get the meats and potatoes put together really reasonably quickly and read through it, make edits and make changes. It's a tool that allows us to be able to do a lot more, a lot quicker. I think, there's definitely businesses and industries that are going to go through some major change and major upheaval with the advent of AI as it gets better and better. For right now, definitely from a kids activity center standpoint, what I love about it is, let's say that dance school that has 100 kids, not a whole bunch of revenue, and that dance school owner is kind of wearing 17 hats. AI is going to be able to take maybe 5 or 6 of those hats off of her head so she can focus on the teaching. But the level of customer service has actually risen that she can have in communicating with the community, just from a very, what we do, we see that right now. And obviously that's what Kai does. And it's a bit of a game changer because, otherwise that little dance school with 100 kids, which doesn't have a lot of revenue, has got to hire someone to be there, or people are just not going to be answered because that dance school teacher, who's the owner, is actually out teaching the kids.
Right.
And that takes pressure off of the dance school owner. It makes them more efficient, makes for happier clients, it makes it easier for them to grow. That's all good now. My concern with the future is, although I absolutely believe that we'll all be dead and our kids will be dead and our grandkids will be dead before there's robots teaching our children gymnastics, I don't think that's going to happen anytime, because I think parents do want that coach interaction. I coach soccer for my little boy, and a lot of the parents loved the interaction that we had with the kids. They liked that there was this person, not dad, not mom, who's going up and saying, you can do this, come on, let's get out there, and building them in a different way, which is a human connection, right? I don't think that's changing anytime soon, right? Even if we have a God AI that's ruling our lives, we'll still be wanting that human connection. And I think gymnastics will probably be even more, right, Amber? So I don't think that's going to change. My only concern, and I spoke about this with Jeff Metzger's people and Jeff Metzger himself, is the only concern is the effect that it has on the grander economy and how that might affect. Like, if everybody doesn't have a job, white-collar jobs go away, will that affect the amounts of families that can afford to do gymnastics or can afford to do dance and so forth? What I will say to that, because I'm constantly looking into this, if I'm honest with you, because my business is going to be is definitely getting affected. We've actually got rid of people, Amanda. We don't have as many copywriters. We have one graphic designer, because that graphic designer can produce 10 times as much quality work as we could before. There's a lot of changes that we're seeing in our organization, and it's not that we're not writing copy, but my one copywriter can actually produce a lot more, and they are more copy editors than copywriters, right?
We are experiencing something similar in our organization. I had a larger team that we would do a lot of manual analysis and a lot of manual looking at what clients are saying, analyzing cross types of channels and feeds to figure out what the issues in the market are. I would say we've also experienced that while we've had some team members actually move into more of a hands-on solutioning, right? Like having those ideas. And that kind of ties back to the innovation, is that we have those creative outlets now. Our teams aren't spending so much in, how do I do this? What code should I write? They're using AI to say, I could write this twice as fast. It gives them a starting point, and they can vibe code. And then they can also kind of take a step back and be like, how does this apply here? What are the innovative things I can do? And it actually opens up more of their brain power, and even me, from having to say, okay, did I nail this communication right? Do I understand the data? It kind of helps as a tool to help me do different things and it enables me, but we haven't seen, and before when I was talking about AI replacing, it's actually just changed and evolved our roles and how we add value to the organization.
Right.
Versus before we were doing something very specific. You learn a niche skill, and now it's how can I take my skill and pair it with another. Amber, for instance, she has a different perspective. I have a different perspective. But our data, we can also use AI as like that third enabler of what can we do that we haven't thought about and use it collectively, right? It's not saying AI is just doing this. It's like, how do we take the skills of AI and what it's good at to enable us to do more than what we could in a shorter amount of time?
Right. And that channeling of putting effort and resources into the things that really matters.
Absolutely.
And taking that effort and resources that are going into things.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you think about it, go back to the formation of Jackrabbit. Jackrabbit, from an automation standpoint, was literally doing this stuff. Hey, you don't need to do all these things that you used to have to do with your book. You can now do it, in a tenth of the time using Jackrabbit, right?
Yep.
So my big concern is where it affects the larger economy. However, historically, humans have gone through changes like this. There's been epochs of different things. And, 300 years ago, you'd have, a community and there would be craftsmen, right? So if you wanted a table, you'd go to the furniture maker. If you wanted this done, you'd go blah, blah, and there was craftsmen. Then that ended with industrialization, right? And everybody was like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? All the craftsmen are going out of it. There's still craftsmen to this day. Like I've got a friend who crafts tables. He does it handcrafted. Now you can go and buy a table or chair or whatever from a manufacturer that has a whole bunch of systems and so forth, or you can buy a beautiful walnut table with a lot of like stuff from a craftsman. So there are still craftsmen, but that epoch changed into the technology epoch and so forth and blah blah blah, and all those jobs that once were there that kind of somewhat went away did open up a whole bunch of new jobs that were needed. And I do believe, and I think you just sneakily, but not knowing it, Amber, said this. I do believe if AI becomes really powerful and takes over all those boring jobs, think of all the offices with the cubicles and all, those jobs are all going to go away, and probably good, right? What I think is going to happen is there's going to be tremendous value placed on human contact and human interaction. And there's going to be new jobs. There might be people that get paid huge amounts of money to go walk with other people and just chat with them. It sounds crazy, right? But
I do see that like circling back to like a simpler time before
humanity,
technology, and it all comes back to this agility perspective that we've taken. Like I think the most important thing is like, we don't know the future. None of us knew COVID was happening in 2020 and none of us knew how to deal with it. But being able to be agile and as a dancer, be able to pivot and go with whatever is happening in the economy, in the market, in the world. And that is why we don't roadmap 12 months anymore, because it doesn't allow us to be agile. It doesn't allow us to shift if the needs change. COVID was a great example of that. We had these 12 months of grand plans change, but no one knew that they were going to need to be able to have virtual dance classes or, virtual stretching sessions for their gymnasts. And so I do wonder, like, at what point are we going to get so tired of the technology and the AI that we kind of revert backward to those more human interaction and positions? But I think that's where Jackrabbit is going to stay the innovator and the leader, because we have everything in place to be agile and we are listening to our people. If there is some kind of economic change, we're going to be right there to figure out how to support our businesses with that.
I do think there's going to be difficulty, and that's mainly due to the change, right? Once the changes and the adjustments are made, I think things could be great because, like I said, there are literally millions of people sitting in cubicles doing brain-numbingly, soul-destroying jobs. Those are going to go away. And my hope is that AI is going to allow us to focus on that human interaction part of it. We're more connected. We have more community. Because all the mechanical stuff that goes on to make our lives easy will be taken care of, which no one really wants to do those jobs, right? No one's desperately wanting to, be somebody who's shuffling paperwork around and sending invoices or whatever it is. I don't think anybody really wants those jobs, but there's other things that will come up. Anyway, final question.
Is scary, and I get where people are like, oh my gosh, change. But I feel like that's where we flourish as people. Like it can be, the only constant is change. And so if we can just embrace that and be open to it, it may not be what we've been doing for the last decade, but on the other side, how much more fulfilling and special is that going to be?
And I actually do think with the white-collar jobs going away, de-urbanization is going to happen. People are going to start going back to the small towns. People are going to start going back to the country. People are going to start having more community. That's the good side of it. The bad side is that Terminator 2 happens and we're all getting killed by robots because someone's stupid enough to program something to say, something, and it goes, oh, the way we get rid of this problem is get rid of humanity. As long as that doesn't happen.
You don't have to say, oh, we thought that was just a movie. And,
I will promise everybody that we will never push Kai in that direction. Never. So here's the final question. If you could give one piece of advice to kids' activity center business owners about embracing technology to run a stronger, more joyful business, what would that be?
Round it out with like right where we were at, take the things that make sense to automate, like your billing, like some workflows for leads coming in to get them nurtured into either a trial class or a money back guarantee, whichever side of the fence you sit on for that, and really pour into the relationship building and the experience that you're creating for those kids who do come in your center. Because we talked about it from the beginning, the parents aren't saying, where's the cheapest place I can send them? It's where are they going to get the best experience that's going to impact them. Whether they go on to be a famous gymnast or a dancer, that's not the goal. It's how can they have these great memories and become great humans in their future. And so that is going to come from those face-to-face experiences, leverage that technology to do the things behind the scenes that make sense. But when people come into your building, step from behind the desk, say hello, start conversations with them. And that's going to impact them way more than you can imagine.
Do you feel the same way, Amanda?
I do. I was just going to echo what Amber said. I'm a very practical, logical person. So I would start with identifying the top 3 things that are kind of putting thorns in your side, and identify if those are things that are solvable, if those are products or partners that you're working with. Ideally, you're the sum or the average of who you surround yourself with. Just like in your personal life, I would treat your business as a higher standard. So you want to make sure that you're looking at, are these things supporting what my values are? And is it going to help me grow? And if you can answer that pretty confidently, then go down the list of priorities. And I would say little by little, like your priority list is going to keep growing. But if you can look at it through the lens of at the top, what can technology solve? What can it do? And remain curious and open and agile, then if you're going to be on your way to success to embrace technology.
And I'm going to just add as a final word, I'll take the final word, I guess, is, there's 2 major parts. There's multiple parts, but the 2 major parts in my mind nowadays with kids' activity centers is the human resources that you have in your organization and the technological resources that you have in your organization. The beauty of the technological resources nowadays is that's allowing you to reallocate your time and effort and spend to the human resource, which ultimately comes to what I talk about regularly to my team and, on these podcasts and so forth, is the word delighting people. So if we can really build amazing programs, build connections with families and children, you end up having much more of a chance of getting that delight happening. And delight being the opposite of anger, right? So anger, if there's anger, there's delight. If there's sadness, there's happiness. If there's, confusion, there's knowing, all those things, right? Delight is the opposite to anger. When people are angry, they run off and write bad reviews and tell everybody about it. When people are delighted, they'll write positive reviews and tell everybody about it. I can't believe what Amber just did. She was so amazing. You should have seen what Amanda said to me the other day. She was just so great. You should talk to them. They're so wonderful. That's delight, right? Mm-hmm. So if you can put less resources, I think we're at least 5 to 10 years away from having no human resources. And you need someone operating that technology or a minimum overseeing that technology. But if instead of having 10 people in your front desk or your administrative roles that you are now, you might be able to have 5. And like I said, that might allow you to add 5 more coaches, which allows you to possibly have 50 new classes and serve so many more people and make the focus being about people and less about invoicing or responses or blah, blah, blah. And I do believe that the gyms, we see it ourselves, the gyms that are really embracing that, especially with Kai, are seeing that shift in resources, right? And the beauty of Jackrabbit, if I'm honest, is you guys are very like an integral part of a well-run gym. What I love about you guys, and this is my final sales pitch to it, and the reason why we speak to you guys, and the reason why we actually have this kind of thing going on, is that you are wholeheartedly embracing that process as well, connecting people to people and allowing all that automated technology to take care of all that boring stuff that no one's really interested in anyway, in an accurate, fast, efficient way. And it's kind of exciting when you think about it like that. Anyway, that's about it. We've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes or so, but I love talking to you guys. We're going to have to do it again. I really appreciate you guys coming on.
Absolutely.
And thank you for coming. If you haven't, do you want to say anything, Amber, before you leave? Are you good?
I think we wrapped it up with a beautiful.
You got it good? How about you, Amanda? I feel like I just
thank you, Andy, and Creatively Disruptive. This was really fun, and I'm excited to see how youth activity centers respond and adopt this methodology and thinking into their own practice and see what comes of it.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
All right. Thanks, Andy.